welcome back, friends. My name is Michael Yates. This is the Ridgeview Pod. We are so glad you've taken time out to join us. Please subscribe, ring the bell so that you get notification of our latest episode. It's always great that you've chosen to spend some time with us. I am tickled to have as my guest today Gary Harmon. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
What I can't believe is, so let me tick off the ways in which I know you.
This may take a while.
It could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So certainly as an author.
Yes.
A podcaster.
I am.
A fellow mission trip participant.
Survivor.
Yes. Survivor, right. Yes. I believe where were we? Merida, Mexico?
Merida, Mexico. That's right. The last time I ever did actual work.
I know better. A teacher.
Yeah.
A father, a husband, mm-hmm. A director of plays.
Yes.
And a humorist. One of the quickest, smartest wits that I've ever met.
Well, thank you.
And a lover of words.
Yes, that's true.
So, well, that's kind of where I'd like to begin is language.
Sure. Okay.
We use the word, and certainly in our field, the word disability comes up a lot.
Right.
And disability is one of those words that can be used in a positive, thought-provoking way, and sometimes it can be used in a real limited way.
Right.
Help me unpack the word disability and what do you think of it?
One of the reasons why I use it, and I do use it, a person with a disability, I use that. I don't like it, but it's a way of, if you're driving down the highway in a hurry and you need to get a message across the other lane, it works. So no one questions when you say I'm a person with a disability. They understand that. I prefer personally to say I'm a person with a physical difference. Mm-hmm. I'm not disabled. There is only one thing in the world I would love to do that I cannot. Only one, and I can't play the piano. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to. Now, I did come up with a 3-finger ditty that I did as a child that I still love. And I own a piano. And fortunately, my wife can play and my older son can play. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to. I want to. That's the way life works. Mm-hmm. But I don't love the term because it implies there are things I cannot do. Yeah. And I don't want anybody to start off thinking about me by limiting and thinking, well, I bet he's not a very good football player. He probably, I don't run races because I don't have feet. All of those things are true. Mm-hmm. But disability, I think, has more, it implies more that there are things about life that I cannot accomplish.
Yeah. I seem to recall a couple years ago, maybe it's been 5 now, mm-hmm. I don't know, you were doing like a speaking circuit, and it was around a challenge accepted or something like that.
Right.
Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, you're combining two things. I had a nonprofit that I ran for a while called Challenge Accepted. Okay. And we brought people in who wanted to come with whatever their disability. One of the things that we said is we're not going to question you at the door. It doesn't matter to me what it is. So if you want to come in and talk about it, you're welcome to. If you want to come in and just be among like people, that's fine too. Yeah. So we never questioned, but we lasted for a while. Unfortunately, a lot of our members got older and began to pass away, and we got to the point where we said, okay, we're going to stop this. But I really loved it. On our very first meeting, we had a room full of people, and most of them were service providers, which I found interesting. And one of the ladies from one of the service providers stood up and she said, I need you to understand that we provide a lot of what you're doing here. And one of the new members turned to her and he said, I don't think you understand. We don't want you to provide shit. We'll provide for ourselves. I went over and hugged him. I like, that's awesome. And I gave him a hug. And I said, that's what we're about.
Yeah.
I said, I don't care if you use other services. Great, go use them. But I want us to support each other.
Yeah.
And that's what the challenge this after was. Now, I do public speaking.
Yeah.
I do a lot of it. Since the pandemic, it slowed down tremendously. And I haven't really gotten it going again, but I do love doing it. I have found that I like all age groups. I did a speech last week with kids. They were in an elementary daycare. And I learned a lot from doing this. You don't speak to kids. Yeah, they can't hear you. I have children. I ought to know that, right?
Amen, brother.
Yeah, when you say, all right, let me tell you about it. They go, and they're gone, right? So how do you talk to kids? You go in and talk to them. I say, okay, what's your name, buddy? Michael. Michael, what do you think about? And you go, I have to answer this because my peers are watching, right?
Yeah.
And they answer. After a few minutes, they realize you're not scary.
Yeah.
And they realize you don't have hands, and you don't mind talking about it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes magic after that.
Yeah.
I always see that fear look on their eyes when I walk in, and I have a time limit now. If I can't turn that around in 2 minutes, I need to shut up. And I can do it, man. I go in, and I started off and said, how many hands do I have? And they had to think about that. Because that's not exactly their definition of a hand, right? So one boy said, well, I think you have one. And I said, I like that you say, I think you have one. Why do you think I have one? He said, well, it's not really a hand, is it? And I said, well, what does it take to have a hand? A palm and 5 fingers. So you're right, it's different, but this is still a hand.
Yeah, right.
And he wasn't sure. That launched into an interesting conversation.
Oh, I bet.
And I wound up, I draw caricatures of myself, and I drew one for them. And I said, I can't tell you whether I have a hand or not. I can tell you there's not much I can't do.
Yeah.
And I think that turns into an interesting conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I still have vivid memories of when we were trying to move these cinder blocks around in Merida, Mexico, to build a church.
Right.
There you are.
Moving the blocks, right.
Thick into it.
Well, I couldn't climb a ladder, so I didn't want to get up on the top of the building and do real work. So I walked across the courtyard, bringing one block at a time. And what was funny about that was some of the locals complained. And they talked to, I think it was to Fritz, the minister at the time, and they said, you shouldn't have a handicapped guy out doing that all day. So we had to sit down and talk to him and explain to him I was doing it by choice. I was here knowing that's what I was going to do. And they said, well, handicapped people don't do that in our country. And I said, we don't have handicapped people in ours. We have people with disabilities. And that was all lost. But once they got used to it, we could work together. And you know what finally broke the ice? I knew a Gypsy King song.
Oh, of course.
I heard one of the guys singing the song, and I went over there. I said, Gypsy Kings? He goes, how do you know Gypsy Kings? Well, and that's it. Music, man. It bridged the gap. It was awesome.
Music will do that for
yes,
sure.
Sir.
Well, so you've been kind enough to have me on your podcast a couple of times to talk about mental health.
Yes.
And we'll put the link to your podcast in our comment section so that other viewers can link to it. But I also want to draw people's attention to your website, harmonspeaks.com. That too will be in the notes, where you can learn about not only your public speaking opportunities and how to reach you, contact you, but also about the books that you've authored.
Right.
So we've got 2 of them here.
That's right.
I believe this one was the first one, right?
It was the first one, yes.
My Daddy Takes His Legs Off. We had this in our library when our kids were younger. I don't know if it's packed up now or if it's sitting in McKay's bookstore.
And that's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as somebody can get to it, good.
Yep. And then
there's also a couple in the Knox County Library.
Okay, great. And then A Clown in the Cobwebs,
Yes.
which is your more recent
Right. And you'll
authorship.
notice it has a different author's name.
Yes.
That's because it's a memoir, and there are people in here that were still alive. I've changed every name, including my own, and that was to make the legal team happy.
Yeah.
But I only speak bad about one person who was living when I put this book out, and he's passed now.
Yeah.
So, Coach Woodard, I'm sorry, but you were an asshole.
Isn't this like the beginnings of Leonard Skinner, where the coach
Yes,
was?
yes. Except I never took his name on. No, I never did that. But otherwise, yes.
Well, is there something you just speak to the importance of these two books and what kind of difference they can make to either a family
Right.
with young kids, or maybe to someone who has grown up with some struggle and is looking for
Right.
ways to transcend that?
Right. The first book, the children's book, I wrote because of an experience I actually had with my children. I took them to a movie when the oldest, who's on the cover, was about 6 years old, which made my younger son about 2, I think. We went to a movie, and as we were going into the movie theater, this isn't the story, but it's why I wrote it. Well, as we went into the theater, I was wearing my summer outfit of shorts and T-shirt, and a group of college-age kids walked by me, and one of the young ladies looked at me and she said, "What the hell is that?" And they all laughed and went on out. Now, fortunately, I am too old and too apathetic to care what 20-year-olds think of me. I don't care. I have a nice old lady living with me in my house, and we get along okay. So I don't need young college girls' approval. So I didn't care. I did what dads are supposed to do. I went to the concession stand, bought everything I could afford, and we went and watched the movie. So my older child came in and sat down by her mother and whispered that she was uncomfortable with what happened.
Huh.
And I leaned over and I said, "Do you want to step outside and talk about it?" And he said, "Did you get popcorn, Dad?" I said, "This is my child. No blood test needed." I said, "You better bet you, baby." So we watched the movie and ate a corn. But when we got home, she said she didn't think that anyone should say that to somebody. And I said, "Well, that's true, but I don't think the 6-year-olds need to be making speeches about it." And she said, "Well, who's going to change it then?"
Yeah.
And that's one of those moments where the stars realigned for me. And I decided, I've always liked talking. I'm a teacher. It's what I do for a living. And I have absolutely no qualms about discussing the disability. So I got out there and started doing it. And I wrote the book for that purpose. And it's my hope that families who want their children to be able to interact with everybody will get a copy of that and read it to their children. I have actually given it to families whose children were visibly afraid of me. We had a family that lived down the street from us. Every time I walked by their house, they were terrified. So I took them a book. And their mom read it to them several times, and now they're my buddies.
Yeah.
So I'm the funny old man that doesn't seem to be able to do anything but walk by. But we get along. We do fine. They're fun kids.
Wonderful.
Now this one is a little different. Clown and Cobwebs is a memoir, and I actually started writing that book when I was 20 years old. And you're going to say, "Well, you're in your 60s now. Why did it take so long?" Have you seen me type? I can, but it's not very fast.
Stephen King does not have to worry about you overtaking
I
him
am
with
not going to
prolific
overtake.
writing.
No, I'm not. I'm not. And he always says he writes 3 hours a day. I write 20 minutes a day. So I think he's safe.
Yeah.
But I finally wrote this book. But the great thing about taking so long to write it is I totally changed what I was trying to do. I thought at first it would be interesting to chronicle what it's like to grow up in the South with a disability. And when I got to be probably in my early 30s, I realized that's not my story. As I really live in isolation. don't live around a lot of people with disabilities. I'm not a member of a community in that way. So what I decided to write about is my relationship with my father. He was a military Marine drill instructor, and he wanted Marine sons. And I'm a lot of things, but a Marine son I am not.
Was your dad Bull Meacham? And
he was. It's the exact same story. It's the exact same story. I read every Pat Conroy I can get a hold of.
Yes.
We had the same life. My dad was just like it. He was very angry and really upset that his sons didn't turn out like him. But the younger one was cute. I was not cute. So and it's not that simple. I say in the book that my name was supposed to have been Shame because that's what he felt. He was really ashamed that something about him wasn't good enough to make a full-grown man.
Well, I went to look at this, and I can't remember if the link was through Amazon or where, but some of the comments, descriptions, feedback from folks that have bought and read this book were incredibly powerful. And very appreciative of your ability to capture an experience that is not isolated. I mean, there are other people that have, we just referenced Pat Conroy and a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of kids growing up in homes today where they're not getting the type of unconditional positive regard that they're deserving.
That's right.
So if for viewers, certainly check this out and know that there's a couple of links there that are easy ways to learn more about the book or buy it. Great addition to your library.
There's some good reviews on Goodreads as well. So they can take a look at it there and read the first 50 pages. So you can get an idea of what the book is like.
Very good.
So one of the goals I wanted to do is I wanted to uncover the fact that a lot of people with disabilities grow up in some sort of abusive situation. Right before the pandemic, I was hired to speak at a conference in Nashville with disability folks from all across the state and service providers. And when they hired me, they said, we want to specifically request that you reference the book. And I chuckled and I said, well, the book's not exactly cheerful, so that's going to be a whole different speech. And she said, that's the speech I want. She said, we'll bring a clown in if we need to cheer everybody up. We want you to talk about truth. So there's a chapter there that I referenced and talked about it a little bit. And I told them at the end of that, you have to buy the book to know the chapter. But I told them there were some things I learned from my experience. And one of them was that my dad didn't love me. And I said, now it sounds silly for a gray-haired old guy to even say that. But I think it's important to deal with that, right? And say it out loud. And I told him I wasn't going to ask him if anybody went through this experience, but I told my wife and I would be waiting outside the conference room. If they wanted to come talk to me, I'd be there. I was there for an hour and a half. People lined up to come tell me their experience about the family member who couldn't love them. And it was sad, but I felt like it was healing as well. And I said, I'm not a counselor. I can't give you advice. The only thing I can offer is a handshake or a hug. And I got a lot of hugs because the handshakes are just weird.
Yeah, man, that is a great great story. And I'm intrigued by the fact that, that the host of that conference or opportunity, wanted you to speak the truth.
Right.
This is what we need to hear.
She earned a lot of respect from me for wanting to do that. So.
When I appear on your podcast, we talk, it's usually during May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and we may talk about everything from suicide prevention to how to optimize good mental health, everything in between. I'm curious, as I'm interested, though I spend a lot of my vocational time talking about the disability of serious persistent mental illness and how that is lived out for folks that we care for and treat.
Right.
How would you talk to me about, for folks that experience a disability of amputation,
right,
of other physical disabilities, how do you see what are some of the unique mental health challenges that those folks may experience?
Okay, that's a really great question. I'll try to take a stab at it. The first thing I think that's important to remember is you want to keep shame out of it. Nobody is the way they are because they chose to be limbless. Nobody makes that decision. Except that guy in the movie was trapped in a rock and they had to cut his arm off. But that's fiction. But anyway, it's not a choice you make. I didn't lose my hands or feet because I did something wrong. My mother's body just went crazy while she was pregnant, and the amniotic sac tore into shreds, and they wrapped around my limbs. So when I was born and I was met with paternal shame, that did not help things, And I think if we get rid of that and realize that the child's going to go on to be fine, and life can be good, and you don't have to have all of your limbs or whatever it is that might be affected, but to have a good life. Mm-hmm. You're all born with a spirit and with a mind, and use them. So shame is one of the biggest things I'd ask to get rid of. And for me, of course, physical abuse was a real issue. And once I outgrew that, that changed my life a lot. And one of the things that helped me personally, and you see this in the book, I always say to audiences when I'm talking about it, I'm not the protagonist of my story. There were a series of them. And those were mentors that came into my life and saw something that they thought was worth salvaging. And thanks to them, I grew up and have a family and a life and can do things. But there has to be a community around you that help you do that. Mm-hmm. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, that's a wonderful segue to the episode that was recorded prior to this one, where we were that very point came up, how the value of social connectedness to other people, whether it's your formal or informal supports, that you've got that cast of supporters is critical to helping you, mitigate, the further struggle with a diagnosable mental illness, or just transcending and optimizing the good mental health. I can't help but wonder if there was the thing that you mentioned at the outset. What was that first piece that you mentioned?
You want me to have a memory?
Right. Yeah. I wanted to piggyback back on both of those.
Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
No, there's a lot of rich stuff there. Mm-hmm. What do you think is where do people, let's say someone is watching this who may be experiencing a physical disability.
Okay.
Where can they turn to maybe get help or get connected with an organization that can lend support?
That's a great question. I appreciate it. Now that I'm retired, I'm doing volunteer work with a group in Knoxville called Spark. And Spark's mission is to provide technological assistance for any person with a disability who needs it. We provide computers, We provide medical assistance, like wheelchairs and crutches and all that sort of stuff. We also, one of the reasons I'm working with them is I started a support group, much like my Challenge Accepted group. I didn't start it, but I've become a part of it. And it's a group, we call it Spark a Conversation. And we don't pretend to offer medical help. What we're trying to do is build a community. So if you want to come to our meetings, we're every first Monday of the month at 10 o'clock in the morning. Come on by.
Right.
And if you can't come by, we will let you join us on Zoom or whatever we have, and you can be a part of the meeting. And we do have one member who has mast cell disease, and she can't be out in the public. She's allergic to nearly everything in the world. She used to tease me that we could never be really great friends because my wife uses Tide, and she's allergic to Tide. So I knew my odor was offensive, but I didn't know it made somebody sick.
Right.
And she allows me to joke about that. But we try to bring people together who can just share and build each other up and support each other. Yeah. It's a very positive thing, and anybody can come and be a part of that.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put that information in the comments section as well. I remember what that first thing was that you said.
Sure.
So you spoke to shame.
Yes.
And that, I think that is, certainly part of what the mental health community is always trying to do is reduce stigma.
Right.
The stigma associated with a mental health diagnosis, mental illness, and certainly substance use and addiction-related things also have a huge stigma to it. And when you were talking about shame, it made me think of Brené Brown, who famously said, if you can listen to someone's story with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive.
Right.
And I think in part, what you've done in authoring these books and what you are doing in your podcast and public speaking is helping people tap into their ability to listen with empathy and understanding, so shame won't survive.
Right.
And that's I think, a wonderful gift.
I had a guest on once. She was vision impaired severely. And, excuse me, one of the things I wanted to achieve with the podcast was I wanted people to see her as fully functional and happy. And so I asked her, I said, now that you're here, as you know, we meet in our church in the library. I said, you're back here in the library with two grumpy old men. If you wanted to get out of here in a hurry and you're blind, how can you do that? And she said, do you honestly think I would come all the way back here with two guys and not memorize every step?
Wow.
And we laughed and we said, no, of course, we're old, we're married, and we're no threat. We are not going to hurt you, but you can honestly get out of here on our own. And she said, stop the camera. And he stopped the camera. She got up, walked out of the church.
Wow.
And she came back. Well, she didn't run away, but she wanted to show us that she could do this. And one of the things that I think is the way to get rid of shame is to spend some time with strength.
Yeah.
Talk about what you do love, what you can do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that gives me strength is I entered a marriage where we mutually actually love each other.
Yeah.
And that changed my whole life. I didn't think anybody could ever love me. I didn't think it was possible. And Catherine's listening, going, give me a drink.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But that was helpful.
Yeah.
I didn't have to feel shame anymore.
Yep.
She actually kind of liked having me around.
Yep.
So I think the sooner you can replace shame with something much more positive,
I love that,
the better your life's going to be.
I love that.
And I think Brené Brown, by the way, is a genius. And Catherine and I read her a lot and watch her videos and that sort of thing, because we always need reminders that we have to be vulnerable with each other.
Yep. Vulnerability.
So, that is tough.
Yep.
And we've been together 31 years. It's hard to be vulnerable to somebody who knows you so well.
Yeah.
But every now and then we say something the other doesn't know we're thinking.
Yep.
And that's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, I think closing out on strength is a fitting way to bring this part of the discussion to a close. Gary, one of the things I like to do with my guests is ask a few rapid fire questions just to help viewers maybe see a different part of the guest that's less academic and clinical.
I'm a teacher. I'm all academic. Good luck. Good luck. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So if you'll humor me.
No problem.
Now, I get the...
I'm a little nervous now, but okay, go ahead.
I have to admit, I steal these from Greg Bennett, who's a triathlete podcast guy I follow, and I always love this part of his podcast.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite family vacation?
We like to go to Destin, Florida. That's my favorite vacation. We love now. It's getting crowded now that the pandemic is over, and that's kind of a pain in the neck. But I still love going down there. I love taking my family out to dinner. I know I like food, but I like food because it means family to me.
Yeah.
And we sit at the table, and Nathan, my son, who's autistic, will sit there and come up with the most interesting questions of anybody I've ever known. And we have great conversations. And then we wound up getting ice cream at the end of the night. It's perfect.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. What a great place, Destin.
It is, yes.
Favorite of our family as well. What are you currently watching on Netflix or some other streaming network?
The Offer.
The Offer?
Are you familiar with it?
No.
It is the story, I think I'm about to finish it, but the story of the production of The Godfather.
Oh, okay.
I am a big Godfather, Sopranos, Goodfellas. I love all of those kind of movies.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a fat, middle-aged man, that makes perfect sense. Because if I have an enemy, I don't whack him. I can't do that kind of stuff. And it gets some of that anger out of you to watch some of that. And then when you see what it does to them and their families, you go, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, but it would be fun.
Yep. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll check that out. So which decade of music is the best?
The 70s.
And give me a flavor of a couple of the bands that make you think of the 70s.
I'm going to tell you two. One of them you love is Led Zeppelin.
Amen, brother. Preach it.
Oh, my God. But in addition, I love The Who.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard Young Man Blues?
Oh, yes.
If you take that song and shut everything else down, turn it up full volume and just say, young man, and sing along. Whatever you're blue about will be gone by the end of the song. I love it. This last week, as a matter of fact, my wife dug out my CD of Tommy. And I said, you can't play that. And she said, why not? I said, that's not something I hear a couple of songs and go out to do something. I got to hear the whole thing. And she said, I wonder if we can find it on the cable. We did. We watched the whole movie again. God, it's great.
Yes.
It's just great.
Yes. Well, you've picked two of my favorites there.
I love The Who and I love Led Zeppelin.
So
Going to California.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God, I love that song. I love it. It's probably my favorite of theirs.
Our viewership sometimes likes to part of the PSR program. They after watching these episodes, they like to discuss their favorite decade of music. So
great.
All right, so here's a various. You mentioned you love food. Should
so.
Pineapple be on pizza?
Yes, sir. It should. I'm a pineapple guy.
Right.
I love pineapple and ham. My older son makes faces and leaves the table every time I order it. That may be why I like it. But I pick it up and go, sweet and savory. Oh, my God, and eat it.
It's my wife's favorite Hawaiian pizza.
Is she? Well, yeah, Ruth and I were good friends. But I don't understand not liking it.
Yeah.
Now, I do love a good meat pizza. And then throw in some peppers to get a little indigestion going. But I like the pineapple.
All right. Just a couple more here.
Sure.
Where is somewhere you haven't been that you'd like to go?
That's a great question. I would like to go. There's so many places out there. I narrow it down. I can tell you, I want to go to Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
I've always wanted to see the pyramids, of course,
Yeah.
and the Temple of Ramses II.
Yep.
I would love to do that.
Yep.
Now, I'm not built for hot weather, so I don't know how I'd ever survive that.
It's
But
a
I would
scorcher.
I love history, and I would just eat that alive.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
No, that's a great choice. I was fortunate when I was in college to spend a semester there, and it
In
is
Egypt, really?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And it is mind blowing when you see
Right.
just how big those stones are.
Right.
It's like, what?
Right. Well, I watch what my son calls boring daddy TV, and it's fortunately the kid that likes to watch it with me, so I don't get offended. But we were watching a show about Egyptology one night, and they had an expert showing the host of the show around, and the host asked, he said, why does he say his name so much in hieroglyphics? We know who he is. And he said in Egyptian mythology, they believed that if you invoke the name, you revive the spirit. So it's a way of keeping him alive throughout the ages. And he said, and look at here, we're standing here saying Ramses II, Ramses II. And I thought, who will be saying my name in 2,000 years? Creditors.
Right. That's why I should have been named The.
Yeah. I don't know. That would be my name. As a teacher, that would be great. I always teach my students the only question I ever get with any regularity is, can I go to the bathroom?
Right.
I doubt it. You can't even ask it. Probably
Right.
not.
Yes. May.
Yeah.
All right, last one.
Last one.
I know this is going to be close to home because you and I are both movie buffs,
I
but
love it,
what is
yeah.
the greatest movie of all time?
Godfather 2. I don't have to wait for that.
You didn't hesitate
I
a
love that
second.
movie. God, I love that movie.
Wow.
I love that movie. When Vito Corleone is a little boy and he's been quarantined. What's it, smallpox? I think he catches on the trip. And you see him standing in the window and they're singing the song to the Godfather theme song. And you think, is there anyone lonelier than that one kid?
Wow.
And then he rises to be a king.
Huh.
That's a great story.
But would you have said Godfather 2 prior to watching this recent show about the making
Yes,
of the Godfather?
yes.
So it has always been.
I've always
wow.
loved it. And I'm even a fan of Godfather 3, although it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
If you love the others, it's hard. I don't know if you knew this. They came out with the director's cut of it recently where they redid it and took away the horrible. The problem with the movie is timing. You know, they'll come in and go, Michael, you'll never believe what Gary did. You wait, 1, 2, 3. Well, what did he do? That's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that. So they cut out those gaps. Michael, you'll never guess what Gary did. What did he do? You know, they keep it alive.
Yeah.
And they also punched up some of the details in the movie that you could lose in the original.
Okay.
So they've redone it, and it's much better.
All right.
But 2's perfect.
All right. All right.
If you see perfect, that's a perfect movie.
All right. There you go.
There you go. It's
Check it
perfect
out,
movie.
guys. Well, Gary, I love you, man. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming in. Let's do it again.
I would love to. I really would.
All right. And thank you, friends, for tuning in. Again, we always appreciate it when you have chosen to spend some of your time with us. And please don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell so that you get notification of the next episode. And take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.